Are you ready to get provoked? You're listening to Can I Live, a show created to excite, ignite, and expose. Let's tune in with your host, R.W. Jones. Thank you for tuning in to HUD Housewives of America. We are here. If any of you remember last week, if you tuned into our show last week, and forgive us for that blackout post on Facebook last week, I had two cameras going and one camera was covering the next. So please forgive us. We'll probably remember some of these days in the early on stages of this podcast world. But you're learning and growing at the same time. So please forgive me for that. We're trying to actually replace it, but I think there's something with Facebook once you already have a, what do you call it, like views and stuff, it's just hard to separate. But either way, last week's podcast, we really launched the series, The HUD Housewives of America, right? And we had some ladies on. In fact, I guess I have to text one of them right now because she should be on. Her and her man. Like, where are the men? Everybody, we had a couple that said they was going to be on. The black men, the case of the invisible black man. This is what we're talking about. This is the show right here. Where you at? Let's see. Hello. I don't want to put everybody government out there. Let's see.
Do you see a message from an our niece, Raquel?
Huh?
You see a message from our niece? It says it's in. She said she put something in the chat.
Can you see this? I can see it. Yes. So, here's what I know. Everybody right now, your phones are muted. I think everybody outside of Monette.
And I'll mute myself.
Yeah, you can mute yourself. So everybody is muted until we actually bring you on, just so that we don't have a lot of feedback, background noise when we're doing the podcast. But if you have the link, if you register, I can see you. You can use the chat feature. We're using Zoom, and we're also streaming live in Facebook through Can I Live and through Raquel's Billionaires page, which is my personal Facebook page. And so let's go back to where we were last week. Some of you are still here from where we were last week. We had a really intense conversation. I thought it was a bit heavy because we were talking about what it means to be a HUD housewife of America. I know most of y'all might look at public housing and y'all think, okay, them rundown projects, then those, them ghettos, that's where you die and get killed. That's them pissy elevators. That's them pissy hallways. And we don't really get the opportunity to talk about how those things became those things. And for most of you guys who don't know, Can I Live? We're a National Public Housing Tenants Association. We got one big audacious goal to move 1 million moms off welfare. And so in order to do that, what we found out, I've been doing this work since 2009, so a decade. And I know that there are so many things that are happening right now in public housing through HUD that residents just don't know about. And so whether you know that HUD is relocating families across the United States and giving them vouchers, and people can't find vouchers, people are losing their housing. Affordable housing is a crisis. However, this series deems to highlight real live issues for real women, mostly women, and we do have some men that live in public housing. But before we get into the HUD Housewives of America, because it sounds a little stereotypical, the notion is while public housing is home to majority single parent households, and while African Americans make up 12% of the United States population, we make up almost 50% of all public housing. Let's just make that clear. 12% of United States population, almost 50% of public housing population, which is over 2 million in public housing and close to 6-7 million in Section 8. We're still almost 50% of both of those realms. And we're single. We're not married. Okay. Praise the Lord, I did get married like 5 years ago. That's a whole nother webinar, whole nother series, because I had to become that which I desired. That's a whole nother whole nother thing. But when we see what I want you guys to do is, first of all, don't cast no judgment on what you might hear today from women, from men. Don't judge. Don't judge whether they got 5 baby daddies. Don't judge whether they got 8 baby mamas. Don't judge if they choose to sell their coochie for money on the first. Don't judge if they choose to, do a little something strange for some change. Don't judge. I'm going to tell you why. If you guys have ever heard of this guy, his name is Richard Rostein. He wrote this book called The Color of Law. If you have not gotten this book, you should get it. If you call yourself a housing advocate, a housing leader, a resident leader, an affordable housing mouthpiece, you need to have this book. It actually, the slogan is a forgotten history of how the government segregated America. It goes as far, and I'll tell you, I think I got into 2 chapters. I kind of swam around the book, but in 2 chapters, I just cried. Well, I cry all the time. Most of y'all are like, she'll cry, baby. I'm tough and I'm hard, but I have a heart, damn it. And I hurt, and I am very compassionate when I see that people just took power to such authority and abused it. Like, who gave them the right to abuse power? Who gave you the right in God's earth to create such heinous and obstruction to my way of life? Who gave you that right? Who told you that that was your right to have? And so in The Color of Law, it actually tells you how FHA, which was the Federal Housing Administration, which is now known as HUD, they literally had it in the laws, in their policies, in their regulations, where they would not lend to Black people. So I want you to think World War II, I think we fought in the war. We came home from the war. Over 1 million soldiers is home, Black soldiers, 1 million Black soldiers. And there was a housing shortage. And from the housing shortage, they said, okay, well, where are we going to house these people? They created the FHA, the Federal Housing Administration. They put together this manual that basically said, if you live in Black areas, it's red, it's risky, we're not going to lend. If you're in these yellows areas, that means you're too close to Blacks. If you're in the green areas, that means you are the good neighborhoods, we'll lend. They went into cahoots with the government, with the private industry, with the banks, the insurance companies, the Veterans Administration, and they pretty much closed the whole market down. And they said Black people cannot get mortgages. Now, most of these mortgages was underwritten and protected by the federal government. And so what they were saying is you could not get access to this federally funded loan. They also gave money to big developers, private developers, to build housing that Blacks could not get access to. And back then, public housing actually was white, and it had great amenities. And what was happening is they wanted to keep us separated. So we were overrunning these slums, these huts, we were just crammed in these apartments. Now I see why. Most people say, well, why can't we, like the Spanish people, just huddle up? We done did that already. We ain't doing that again. So here we are in these slums. White people got access to housing. White people got access to mortgages. White people got access. They started to give the GI bills for the veterans, the white veterans. They can move to Long Island, Levittown, and all of these other places. They was able to move over there and get these mortgages and these loans. And in some cases, the white folks were subsidized, meaning we're going to pay you to move from the public housing into the suburbs. We'll pay you. We'll give you a voucher. And it wasn't until civil rights leaders back then, I believe in the 1960s, felt like it was unfair to give white people vouchers without giving Black people vouchers. So the whole Section 8 public housing subsidy came in as a means to try to make it fair, because white people were getting the subsidies. And what we believe here is that there are subsidies. At first of all, everybody's on welfare, number one. There's just government subsidies and government entitlement programs that aid in white people's prosperity, and it keeps us poor. So, excuse me, I'm getting carried away. Oh my God, I'm choking. So I had to get, I got so excited. I was just like angry at the same time. Wait. Let me calm down. Let me breathe. Because when it's one thing for you to know it, and it's another thing for you to think it and surmise it, but when the government goes on record and say, yeah, we did that. We redlined, we blocked, we did all of that. We prevented you from doing all of that stuff. And then the way public housing came into play, once all the white people started moving out of public housing, the Black segregated public housing they had long waiting lists. And it looked really conspicuous and like, really, y'all gonna do that? We don't have no housing. We're homeless, sleeping in the streets, sleeping with each other, sleeping in the gutters, in the streets with, just slum shanties. And there's vacant units in the public housing for white folks. And so that's when they started to say, okay, let's just open the door. And that's when all the white people started moving out. They got their little vouchers, they got their subsidies. They started moving to Levittown, Long Island, and all the Black people just started to cram Black people in to what we know as public housing today. Now, keep in mind, if they locked us out of, come on now, I feel the Lord. If they locked us out of housing, what else did they lock us out of? Because you could not get access to certain jobs, where that means you didn't even have access to certain types of monies, certain types of incomes. Now, thank God there were so many people that still made their way prosperous. But even with the same amount of money that white folks had, we didn't have the same opportunity. So finally, they said, well, public housing would be used for the poorest of the poor. If you had income that would go above what that state's income guidelines was, you couldn't get into public housing. And then that's when the subsidies kicked in. And that's how now you have poor people, little education, little to no education on the most part, single, having children. And guess what? Let me backtrack. When it was white public housing, you could not move into white public housing back then if you was not married, one. Two, you could not move in if you did not, if you had children out of wedlock, if your children was misbehaved. They didn't play that nonsense. Okay, so they had a very, very tight checklist on how you would qualify for public housing. So all of that to say, don't judge. Don't you judge what you see today. I understand if you look at these buildings, and I believe after 1975 or something, they just stopped building high rises. So you're never going to see another big old New York City Housing Authority, Chicago Housing Authority, Cabrini Green, those kind of things. Even though that's gone, you're never going to see those high rises come out like that again. So concentrated poverty, lack of economic, Jesus Christ, y'all laughing. Lack of economic opportunities. No wonder we are a war zone. No wonder they are filled, public housing communities are filled with trap houses. No wonder, because it was orchestrated. And so I say, keep your subsidy. Do not be ashamed of your subsidy. That's like your little reparations, but you better know how to pimp out that reparation. Make it a reparation. Don't make it a handicap. Don't make it a crutch. Don't make it your whole, like that's your legacy. Come up on that thing, and we'll give you some highlights on what and how do you come up on this plan in public housing, because I'm gonna promise you, just as though it was the setup for it and the rig is rigged from the beginning, there also is some powerful, powerful programs in public housing that residents don't even know about and they don't even use. And so we got a guest here from the Jacksonville Housing Authority. Shout out to the Jacksonville Housing Authority. Shout out to Rhonda Lattimore. She runs the resident services department out there. you got to have a vision for resident services. You know what I'm saying? You got to have a heart, and you have to have compassion for people. And I have seen many, many times where resident services, the reason why, if you live in a public housing and you don't have access and you don't really know about what's happening, and you can say, listen, I lived here for 20 years and I really don't know and I never heard, it's because that person, well, it's not just because there's no vision for resident services. Some of that could be your fault too, because you ain't paying attention. However, because when you want to do something, you do it. You get your good foot on and you get it done. No excuses. So I'm not even going to say it's like all of their fault, but it is some of their fault too, because they just don't have a person that understands what this life is about, and to set you guys up with the proper resources to help mitigate the barriers that you're going to face. So I had to preface that, because if the old ladies got to sell their coochie on the first to get dough, if the old men out there want to get their little jammy suck because they selling their pills because they lonely, don't judge. Promise you, don't judge. And it's happening. And that's not even a new thing. That's like a real old thing. It's happening. And so last week when we talked about it, the ladies was like, yo, I'm ashamed of my apartment. I'm ashamed of where I live. I'm ashamed of, bringing a man here. If I brought a man here, I probably wouldn't. And I want to say to that young lady that was on the call last week, she's beautiful, mind you, gorgeous. I'm like, honey, you can get probably any man you want, number one, but maybe the hood ain't checking for like, what's his name? Raymond from Wall Street. But Ray from round the block, and them, you can find them all day. And what they like, listen, I don't want Ray. Ray ignorant as hell. I don't want him. However, some people like Ray. And Ray is in the crib. I'm not saying he's selling drugs. He might be tearing up shit in the neighborhood because he don't got no access to opportunity either. And I know that some of these men are living in the houses. Now, I'm not the damn social service police. I'm not coming to your house and want to look through and under your damn beds like they did back in the day on welfare. I'm not doing that. All I'm saying is, yo, it's real not cool to live in a house. You want this man to be a man, but you don't want to put him on your lease. Uh-oh. I think I done said something right there. You want him to be your man, but you don't want to put him on your lease. Why? Because y'all not married. Okay. Then why he living there? Why you doing that? But then you got some men who do live in the property, not on the lease. And then it's like they say that woman just exerts so much control and could put them out at the drop of a hat. I'm trying to find out where the men at. Wait a minute, Monette. Could you text them? Bill is on a commute. I don't use this government. I'm gonna take Billy. Billy is on a commute. And I don't know where's. I got to use fake names because I don't want to use real people names. But we had like 2 men set up. I'm gonna open the lines in a minute just to kind of see where they at, the case of the invisible man, and kind of just say, okay, what's that about? Let me see who we got in here. Let's bring up. I'm gonna allow you guys to talk. You can mute your phones. Mute your phones, but if you want to talk, like raise your hand so I can unmute you. I see all of you guys are muted. So, Misha, what you got to say? You got something to say? Tommy, you got something to say? Arnice, you got something to say? I think I could only let like a few people on at a time.
Hi, Rocky. Hi.
Hey, Tommy. How you doing?
Hi. I'm good. What's our topic again?
Tommy, you're the one who created the topic.
No, I didn't. Okay, invisible man. Invisible man.
Invisible black man.
Oh yeah, I remember from last week.
Yeah, you was the one who were like, you said that. Now you gotta have to refresh my memory because I remember you said something like, You wouldn't even tell a
I
man
was,
where you lived.
yeah, I would, yeah. I said a good, very good friend of mine told me that I would never have a man as long as I'm living here in public housing. And he told me that a couple of years ago, and it's always been in the back of my mind. I
Was he
don't
somebody that you was interested in?
know, no, just a good friend, a good male friend, a very successful white collar,
Mhm.
black male, successful with his own business, his own home, 2 cars, white collar, federal government. You know, he's not my type, but he's just a good friend,
Not your type.
and,
What
and,
is your
and,
type?
and yeah, and I trust his opinion, and I really trust and value his opinion. And I don't invite men to my home. Yeah, I'm a bit ashamed, you know.
So
I don't
somebody say if a man asks you, y'all getting into the conversation or whatever, and he says, where do you live? What would you tell him?
Capitol Hill.
Capitol Hill.
Sure enough, that's where I live at, Capitol Hill. And then where I live I don't like telling men where I live at. No, because I'm
Mhm.
ashamed. I'm really ashamed of it. You know, I wouldn't, and even if I did have a man, I wouldn't dare invite him to live in my home. If we're a committed couple, then you take me out of here.
Hmm. So then let me ask you this. Let's play. I'm not going to play at the devil's advocate, but I'm going to ask a question. So would a man, because I can't even believe where are the men? I'm so like done right now. Somebody said good answer, Tommy. That's what I tell people when they ask me where I live. I say Capitol Hill. So you
Yeah,
ain't bringing no men to your house.
no,
Um,
because I feel, and it might be because of some past trauma also. You know what I mean? Um, I'd rather not talk about that part
don't
right now because again, because it's trauma and I still experience some of the pain, you know, but
yeah.
it's bad memories. But I don't even like being here myself because this is like to me is living in hell. You know, I don't even want to be here. I even hate to come home sometimes. I hate the fence. The commissioner, the housing commissioner who also lives here, she loves the fence. You know, when you stay here and be happy and joyous and carefree. I can't stand it. I hate when the Europeans, when they're out walking their dogs and walking their children down the street, how they're looking at us. I feel like a animal in a cage. You know, when we used to have before DCHA had this present security force, we had the Nation of Islam here. They were the most courteous, kind gentlemen you would ever want to meet. They would help the women when we're coming home from the safety, help us with our bags, ma'am, miss. You know what I mean? These guys they got here, they ain't no good. You know,
But that's a lot what you said when you said you just said that I am not gonna lie. When I was coming out of the struggle, it would be something about when white folks was walking them goddamn dogs and they frolicked. There was this word I would use like frolic. Like these chicks didn't have a freaking care in the world. And I always envied that because I wanted to know what that felt like. What does it feel like to have all your bills paid by your husband? What does it feel like to be able to just go get coffee and not think about anything financial?
yeah,
What does that feel like? Like, I feel like we're always burdened and pressured on so many fronts about money. And it's a pressure that I'm going to be honest with you, sweetie. You work every day. All of us, we work so hard, but it's not, there is a system, there is a real enemy out against us. And we have to start to look to see who is that enemy so we don't internalize it and think it's our fault. Because how many of us will internalize that? We do. We think it's us. I'm not good enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not skinny enough. I'm not light enough. I'm not white enough. I'm not fat enough. Or I'm not skinny, whatever. I'm not enough, period. And that starts to show on our habits, whether that's why you see a lot of poor women who live in public housing. Obesity is like through the freaking roof. That's a real thing. Depression, mental health. Kids is not getting the attention they need because we trying to, it's like, don't push me, I'm close to the edge. Trying not to lose my mind here.
Yeah.
And I don't know. And I know for sure that if we are feeling that way, I'm going to give one to the brothers right now, even though they asses ain't on this line. If we feel like that, the men got to feel 10 times worse. Because we got the access to the housing, to the Medicaid, to the food stamps, to the child care, to all the systems, the social service systems, that's ours. Uncle Sam would freely give that to us. Now, maybe the men were just so damn embarrassed, or they just forgot, or they just so preoccupied.
Yeah, and then you have that group of men who, I've seen it happen here several times. Like, say they get evicted. A particular family gets evicted, and they have, the sons are now grown. So what they do is they're so connected to the community because they've been here all their lives. So they find a young lady who's single, they impregnate her, and they move into her house so they can keep a home, and keep that connection to family. I see a lot of that here.
You think these men are intentionally going out getting women pregnant just so that they have a roof over their heads?
Not all. I've seen some here. Only a few. Only a few. So it does happen. And in their minds and in their defense, that's pretty sharp. It's a survival skill for them. You know what I mean? It's not fair to the female, but that's all the thing they knew how to do, because they still not working. They living off the female. And that's another thing too. If I let a man move into my house, I'm gonna be the head of household. I'm gonna be bossing him around.
Why?
Because this is where I live. This is my house, even though it's not mine, it belongs to the federal government. But I'm gonna feel so manly. A man should not move in with a woman in public housing. If they're married, that's fine. That's a whole nother animal. But single, shacking up, just having sexual relations, no, you can't come stay with me. No.
Now, this is what I want to do. I do want to challenge the thought just a little bit, because after reading again my new favorite book, The Color of Law, I really did get, because in the experience growing up with the poverty, with what you see, you don't like it. It doesn't feel good. But America has done something very, very well when they are the ones responsible for creating this thing. They have done something that shamed us. Like, who the hell? I wish I could go back to the person who created that narrative where you're going to shame us for the subsidy that the government gave us when they was giving your tails the subsidies forever, but it aided in your prosperity. But then you're going to make us feel ashamed. So I say, listen, you and homeboy, and if I pray that the men listen to this podcast, find a wife. I don't care where she live. If she live in public housing, both of y'all need to be up in there and lay and stack. And when I say stack, you got somebody paying a large percentage of your rent. If you only paying 30, that means Uncle Sam is paying 70. And while that is happening, me and my husband, we're about to come up. Whether we're going to open up a small business, whether we're going to join a family self-sufficiency program, whether we're going to make sure we move into, whether we're going to take our voucher and purchase our house for it. These programs, like, you could purchase a house with your voucher. You could, in certain cases, some of these scenarios, we'll talk with Jacksonville later, they got this new Jobs Plus program. It's just like the FSS. And if anybody don't ever know what the FSS program is, it's a program that actually will allow you, if you move in and your rent is zero, you go get a job, your rent goes up to $500. that full amount goes into an escrow account. And you can save that money for up to 5 years and sometimes get a 2-year extension. Nowhere in the world, again, nowhere in the world is there one program that will take your whole rent check and save it for you for like 7 years. Nowhere. That's number one. Number two, with this Jobs Plus program, they even have it where if that agency received Job Plus funding for, typically it's a community, they will not count your income for like 4 years. So this is the opportunity for us. Okay, maybe, I'm just going to say possibly, these programs was created because of the wrongdoing that they have done. But the fact that they don't heavily promote it, housing authorities can choose to opt in if they want to. Every housing authority in the United States should offer the home ownership program, but they don't. But residents don't even ask for it. It's because we so much in our stuff. And so I would say, don't feel bad about the freaking subsidy. White people get it all the time. They get mortgage deductions, mortgage credits. They can write off. Hell, Trump, how you think billionaires, first of all, how you think billionaires and people like Trump don't pay no taxes? They get the same subsidy. It's just that they use it to enhance their prosperity. And the subsidy we get, we don't know how to work around it. And it keeps us poor, depressed, and just in poverty. But, I don't know. I mean, I just would not. If I could allow you just to change it, because on one hand, you have Black men who really, how many people right now, if the shoe was on the other foot, and let's say he was the one that got the subsidy, and we're the women, and let's say he got the housing, he got the Medicaid, he got the food stamps, he got the child care voucher, he got it all. Could we, in our present situation, could we really take care of him, knowing that Uncle Sam has provided all of that for him? We couldn't compete ourselves. And so I just think it's not fair to hold the Black man or any man to a standard that we could not even fit ourselves. I think that's fair. Like, you want to hold this man to a standard that you not even living yourself. That's not right. And I think that, and that's not, I'm not saying this to you, Tommy. I'm saying it to all Black women out there. If you guys find a good, decent man, you know what I'm saying? Like, work it. Don't use the subsidy as to yield control and power. Because if we didn't have it, our asses would probably be homeless somewhere, or living somewhere else, not living where we're living. And I went to Jacksonville like last week. Honey, them folks down there, they live nice. So everybody public housing stuff is not jacked up. And everybody's Section 8 stuff ain't jacked up either. It does depend where you live. Because I was in a house and I was like, dang, this was just beautiful. And it was Section 8. So there's a lot of people who do enjoy the comforts of a beautiful home on Section 8. But don't live on Section 8 forever and not get your game plan. Like, that is not the lamp-free card. That is not the lay low, let them take care. No, that's your blessing. And we should be utilizing it. I don't think we do. What you think, Arnice?
Hey, Raquel. Well,
Hey.
How's everyone doing this evening? I think that I had to listen to my mom. My mom always told me that God bless the child that has his own. So with that being said, I learned how to be independent and self-sufficient, even with being on the program. I've actually been on the program now for 10 years, and this is how long it's taken me to actually see some light.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, I actually went back to school. Back in 2012, I was in a bad car accident. I was working. I've always worked. since I've been on Section 8, but I will always get part-time jobs where the employers like me, so they would give me full-time hours, but I always work part-time positions just to be able to afford housing so that I can take care of my family effectively. But I got to a point in my life where I say enough is enough. My mother always said, God bless the child that has his own. So let me get out here and beat the pavement and see what I can make happen. Well, I know I take no credit for what I do because God is the head of my life. And I've learned that with God, all things are possible. Amen. So with that being said, I'm to a point in my life. Let me ask you this,
are you married? Do you feel, do you share the sentiments of Tommy where she says she's ashamed of where she lives, she wouldn't bring a man to her house, and or the sentiments that says, I'm not moving a man in my house and I'm on subsidy. He would have to move me off and out.
Well, well, I am married. I wasn't married at first. I got married while I was on the program, and my husband and I were both basically on the same level, with the exception of him not having his education, but he has the intelligence and he's pretty much a go-getter. But I think
you didn't have, so was that wasn't a thing for you. So that wasn't a thing for you. That wasn't a thing for you.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't, because I decided whoever decided to step up to the plate anyway, I feel that we would grow together. That's the bottom line. You don't want to never get in a relationship where the person is already self-made and you got to catch up. You want to grow together. So if you go looking in the wrong places, looking for love in the wrong places, you will find it, and it can be a disaster. So in my mate, I look for somebody who I felt that we were pretty much compatible and on the same level, which I am on a higher level than he is because I have my education. I'm a veteran. I was a weekend warrior for 9 years. So that kind of put me ahead of the game in some aspects, but I still had to crawl before I walked.
If he heard you say that, would he get upset?
No, he wouldn't, because like I said, when we started courting, we had discussions and we shared the same views, and we both wanted the same things I like. And it just takes a while to get to that point, but you have to strive for excellence. Nothing's gonna fall out of the sky. You gotta go for what you want. You have to set goals, and they're not as easy as you think, but when you take the first step, God will do the rest. But you gotta take that initial step for yourself. And that's what I found out that I had to do. And being on a housing program, it has been frustrating because you can't really live your life effectively. Like you look at other people and you say, wow, how come they got this nice home and they got this nice car and this and that? Well, furthering your education is a plus and it's a must. And if I wouldn't have furthered my education, I wouldn't be in a position that I'm in now. Working at the Jacksonville Housing Authority.
And you're about to use your voucher to purchase your home, right?
Well, no, actually, when I got into the program, I started off, I got into the FSS program, but when I got in, I was already at a level where I was making a certain amount of money.
Yeah.
That it was short-lived. It was short-lived. So I FMR'd quickly after like a year, and now I'm at the end of my rope. So
you have the Section 8 voucher, right?
I do. I have the voucher, but I didn't qualify for the home ownership piece because I hit FMR, fair market rent. I hit that so fast with my new position as a full-time employee that now I'm in a position where I'm getting off the
Buy it
program.
outside. Okay. And so
So-
what, that's interesting, because then what she's saying is, has she known what she knows now? Has she used it 5 years ago? Her scenario could have been much different, because
Yes.
she came into the program already elevated at an income. It didn't allow her to really cake or leverage, I would say. So for all of you guys that are in housing, if your rent is 0, join the FSS program. If they have a waiting list, go to school and increase your ability to earn more, so that when your name does come up on the FSS list, then you're, once you join the program, your rent is 0. Once you get your first job, even if your rent goes up to like $800, all of that can be banked. And what Arnice was saying is that by the time she joined, she was already paying a lot in rent anyway. So let's say if Arnice was, when she joined the FSS, she was already paying like $800. And then she got a little couple more dollars, and now her rent goes up to $1,200. But let's say her voucher's only $1,250. So they'll escrow that small amount of money, but she can't go on any higher without now making more than what the voucher can pay. And so that's when she says fair market value, that she's now like paying fair market rent in her area. And so that's a good, to me, it's still a win. It's still a success story, because you can only go up from here. I think a lot of times I've heard, and I know that we keep that voucher because we're afraid. And a lot of us say, well, what happens if I lose my job? Yeah. What will happen if something happened to me? I don't have anything to fall back on. And so we use the voucher as for this false sense of security, not really understanding that it really kind of keeps us poor. Because if I'm not mistaken, I think I heard Arnice also say that while she was given full-time hours, she had to still kind of work part-time just so that she could make sure she's still qualified for the program, because she wasn't really ready to just totally let it go. And that's another thing. You don't just let vouchers go because you make more money. You got to have a whole entire game plan when you got these subsidies. And that just goes back to you, Tommy. I know, but I can see, put like this, it's to each his own. I can see where Tommy's like, listen, I don't want this. And my man, he gonna have to come in and take me out of it. And the only thing that I'm going to say is, if you were looking for your man to take you out of it, you probably going to have to be out of it first to attract the man to take you out of it. Because even though that doesn't sound like that matches, I got to create what I want. If I want a man to be well off and able to take care of me, I need to be able to take care of me. And I need to be able to take care of him should he lose his job.
Yes, ma'am.
That's a real thing, back and forth. So I want to be financially free or financially able to where if my man ever got out here, God forbid, something happened, he could depend on me to hold it down. And I just think that the whole notion and the ideas of, in the perspective, the mindset that, yes, the man is supposed to do certain things. First of all, that's a narrative that white America taught us, because that's what white America and white men do for their wives. And they have wives is at home popping pills and shit because their asses is depressed. Excuse my language. Oh, Lord. Forgive me. You know what I'm saying? Because you ain't got value. You ain't got purpose. You ain't got destiny. You don't know God. You can't hear God. That ain't it. I don't care who working. Your man could be working all day, making all this money. He out here running in and out, running about. You home with them crazy kids, beating on your ass. That ain't it. And so I'm not aspiring to be that. I thank God for my journey, though it was hella hard. I grew to know him, and I will never take that away. And I pray for all the housewives, whether you got a rich husband, I pray that you find purpose. I don't care who your husband is. Just find purpose, find God, find happiness. Life is more than shopping and shopping sprees and buying shit online. Life is more, you know what I'm saying? Like this, it's connection. It's being purposeful and strategic and intentional about your life, knowing that there's mad stuff to do out here. Hello? Did you turn the news on? It's like everything is going to hell in a handbasket. Everything is it's things for us to do. You are a prescription for the earth. You will have a place to fix. Start fixing it. Like get busy fixing it. Damn a subsidy. If you find your man, Tommy, you know, I'm like, listen, yeah, I live at blah blah blah. He might not want to come because he's scared he might get shot. But hell, I ain't living in no place that I'm gonna get shot. How about that? How about that? And sometimes it's jumping out on crazy faith. You'd be surprised how much faith is a currency. Now, I don't want some of y'all going to relinquish your vouchers, talking about, I believe, I believe. Don't do that. Don't say, I listen to the podcast and I believe, and then your ass homeless now. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't
Can I say one thing?
Go ahead.
You know, in life, everything, this is what we all have to know about life. Everything begins and ends with self. We have to take accountability for where we need to be in life. You cannot look to others for your happiness. You can't look to others to take care of you. God gave all of us a purpose in life, and we have to fulfill our purpose, because if we had no purpose, we would not be here. So with that being said, yes, I do have a husband and we have worked together, but I'm still on a higher level than he is. But I'm willing, I've been so patient, and I'm anxious to see what the next chapter holds. And one thing that I know about life is that when you have subtractors in your life, you can't elevate. So you have to clear the cobwebs and get rid of the subtractors. When God removes somebody from your life, it's for a purpose. It hurts sometimes, but you got to let them go, because God is trying to elevate you to the next level, to your own higher level, because we all have levels, higher levels of consciousness that we have to reach in order to get what we need in life and to be successful. And it can be done. It can be done.
I remember, and I'm Miss Green. I remember there was 2 Section 8 vouchers I turned down, and 2 public housing tenancies I turned down. Now, this was before I knew anything about purchasing a house with the voucher. I didn't know nothing about public housing, but I guess maybe, and trust me, years later, I could have kicked myself, because I was like, are you telling me that I could have had a voucher? I could have did this thing so differently. I didn't have to struggle. You don't know what it's like. I mean, and I ran my own business, meaning you had to make your own money. Making your own money, raising 4 kids in market rate, that was like, you know, you better know God. You better. That was just really hard. And there was many times I just could have kicked myself for not, I didn't know. And I don't know if it was pride. I don't know. I know I would always go into the office, and before I would go to the caseworker, I would just say, Lord, if I don't need this, I would rather give my voucher to another mom who really needed it. And because I was already using like my student loan money, my financial aid, TAP, Pell, all of that stuff, I was using it, and my rent was paid, 6 months at a time. And I used that money to survive. So I didn't have to think about the rent. But then later on, once all the money was over and you have to pay market rate, you'd be like, yeah, that might be okay. That might have been okay because I know how to leverage now. So, I don't know. Who's that? HM Green. Who's that?
Harriet.
Hey, Harriet.
Hey,
How you doing?
finding you.
You got a good story. I remember. You got a good story. You'd be surprised. I think of you often with your story, and I just wish more women would do that kind of stuff. Share.
Well, my journey with housing wasn't something that I had to do, but I basically jumped out of my house without jumping away from a problem and jumped into being homeless and then having children and having to take care of them, going from place to place, that I started moving my sons every 2 years. And I've jumped in housing and got tired of it and them running my life and ruling me. So then I got out of it and didn't have nowhere to live again. And then I found myself losing my baby and ended up back in housing again. So now I'm on a different thing. As Raquel said, the FSS program is a good program. I've worked my 5 years and I've come upon my graduation date this year, but I have to submit my little essay and all of my NACA paperwork because I started working on the NACA program to get a mortgage loan
Nice.
and to get a house.
Yeah.
You do stumble across some things like you can find yourself touching a Section 8 voucher, and for whatever reason, you go from being in the hundreds to 1,558 again and can't figure out how you got there. And housing don't explain stuff. They just basically say, oh, well, that's what happened, but they don't really come out and tell you. Once you're in housing and you have signed up for all the multiple programs, your name stops moving on the list for other programs when you're already inside one of their placements. So people who don't have
There was
it.
something.
Hmm?
I remember the story. I remember the story that you shared. You had needed childcare one time, and they told you that in order to receive this childcare subsidy, you had to take your son's or your children's father to court.
Yes, I refused.
And you refused to take him to court.
Why would you well, to break up a family, this is what's done, and that's how they get all the black men, out of the black woman's life and make them struggle and stay dependent on the system. Is they told everyone that for you to get your voucher for your children to stay in childcare so you can work, you had to take the fathers to court. My children's father, we take care of our kids together. I felt no need to take him for child support so I can get a voucher so we can survive and we live in separate homes. I just feel some type of way for women to do something like that. If the man is paying, why would you down him and berate him and take all of his money when he's doing everything he can do already?
Now, well, y'all wasn't even like together in a relationship, were y'all?
We were off and on in the beginning.
Okay.
So we was dabbling around for like maybe I would say 10 years off and on. And then we had the 3 children and we're strong now. We live in separate homes, but we're still strong with our relationship. We do depend this to say that we're going to get married, but we are still looking at that. It's been going on 17 years.
Wow.
So again, we both came into the relationship with 3 children apiece, and we had 3 children, and our daughter passed away in childbirth. So that's what kind of turned our tables. But again, I say to all women, I was a mom with 3 children in the program in the first place, and I was getting child support for my children, and I had friends who were walking around, hair done, nails done, bags, and kids looking shabby. I never did that. I allotted my children bank accounts, and their child support went into their bank account, and they chose to spend the money the way that they wanted to, and the way I said, okay, you want clothes? Well, this have to stay. I always felt that the man wasn't taking care of me. I had a job. I was taking care of myself, and his money really went to his children.
Hold on, I got to get the applause for this one here. You get the applause, Harriet. I promise you, because not a lot of women will do that. Not a lot of women, and for that voucher, that child care voucher, y'all wasn't even married, and you was like, listen, I'm not going to kick you when you down. I'm not going to hold you down like that. I will turn down the child care. We just have to revamp and work something out. But I'm not going to take you to court like this system wants me to take you to child support court in exchange for this voucher. Like, kudos for you. And I wish and I pray whatever it took for you to do that and clap that man up, because for him to even warrant that type of compassion and respect, he has to be a good man. Now, there's some fools out there. I'm so glad we got a black man, y'all. Black man on deck. Lashadian. Now, this is not an average black man. Let me just tell you about Lashadian, because I'm going to give it over to him in a second. Lashadian, and he can tell you more. I know Lashadian is a dad, and I know Lashadian got a couple of kids, if not more than a couple. But he's a father. And he could tell you his story. He ran for city council. I met him, and he told me, he was like, I'm gonna run for city council. And I was like, word, you going? I was trying to get him to run for a little presidency in the housing authority type thing. He was like, I'm gonna run for city council. And I was like, you should do that, and just being there and supporting him in faith and just being in agreement. Yo, he won, and he's in Texas. And he is taking Texas by storm. And I know he's doing some awesome things down there in Texas. But thank you, Lashadian, for coming on. Tell me what kind of good trouble you starting out there.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Hey.
Just blessings to be here. You know me, I'm 10 toes down and in it. So fighting for equity for our people. Just really fighting to be an example. The same thing I was doing at the housing authority, leading by example, showing people that we are not determined by our circumstances, that we can.
So you're not there no more. So, you left.
Yes, I'm not in the housing authority anymore.
Yay. But now you could tell us what your experience was like as a black man, because we got some women on here that said, they were ashamed of where they live. They won't bring a man to their house. The man got to have more. And were you a single dad? Are you a single dad?
Yes.
You were. Okay.
Yes.
I'm seeing a lot more single dads now than before. I don't know what. I guess women's like, you know what? This mother stuff is overrated. You can have the kids. How many children you have? If you don't mind me asking.
I got 13 children.
What?
Oh! 13.
My jaw dropped. Oh my God.
Lashadian.
Yes, ma'am.
Hold on. Goodness. I gotta get my sound effects. Because I thought you had 5, but I wasn't gonna put 5 on you. I knew you had a lot, but I wasn't gonna go that much. But you gotta wait, because hold on. I got to play this. So how many kids you got again?
13.
Yes.
Crickets. Okay, so talk to us about your 13 beautiful children, because you are father to them all. I know you are.
I am.
Now, did you have more since we met? It's been like, what, 8 years?
My babies are, my junior, he's 2 years old, and my daughter. So probably since we met, I probably had 3 little ones since we met.
Okay.
Yep. But
wow.
I don't know if my baby boy was 13? Born. No, I have 6 at home, and my other kids are,
with their
they with their moms, but
You is one dangerous brother.
Yeah,
You breathe on somebody and they probably.
yeah. All this chocolate.
Oh my God. So, okay. So what I know about Lashady, and Lashady, you could correct me. You was in public housing. You was a single dad. You took care of your kids. You took advantage of, because you had a bomb public housing leader. Shout out
Miss Rosalind Miller.
Miss Rosalind Miller. Blessings. I was about to say, because I said Rhonda Lattimore earlier. Miss Rosalind Miller's bomb. And she's one of those, definitely believe in resident services, residents, given opportunities. She's at the helm of the McKinney Housing Authority. Shout out to McKinney. But they gave you a huge opportunity. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so actually, I was single father, homeless with my son at first, sleeping on my grandmother's floor for a minute, and I couldn't get a place to live. Like most men, there are not opportunities for us. Shelters won't typically take us in, and then also, I had a background, as most a lot of young Black men do, and so it was extremely hard for housing. But um, Miss Miller opened up a door for me, and just being who she is as a strong Black woman, giving opportunities to young men, and just the way that she runs her program and giving other strong Black women opportunities to work for her. They opened up the doors and gave me an opportunity. So I filed an appeal after being denied for housing. I filed an appeal, and the residents let me tell my story, and they gave me a shot. But it didn't come without strings attached. Obviously, Miss Miller had some idea of what she wanted. With me being given an opportunity to live there, she wanted me to be engaged as a resident, and I became the resident council president. And that was her whole mission, was to get me engaged, to get other residents engaged. And I jumped in, and I took every training opportunity that the housing authority gave me, and I became a Section 3 business. The federal government says that if you're low income, and you have first dibs to any federal contracts as far as job opportunities go. And so I took all the trainings, and I started creating job opportunities for myself and other people in my community. But that was all under the tutelage and guidance of Ms. Miller.
So do you still run that business now, the inspections?
So I transitioned and let another Section 3 business owner take over that, because I have other businesses. So I didn't need to hold on to that. I let somebody else become self-sufficient by running that business.
Really? So, but it's still your business, or you like sold it or gave it away, or?
No, I just let them create their own business, and I step back
Wow.
and let them have the contract.
Isn't that something awesome? Yeah. So you had contracts. Did you feel any shame with being in public housing as a Black man?
I didn't necessarily feel shame. I knew we had an opportunity to fight. Actually, our housing authority was like 50 years old. We didn't have washer and dryer units, just because 50 years ago they didn't have that in their homes. So we still had to hang our clothes on the line out back. So there was a stigma to living there, but I knew that that was just an opportunity for me to fight. And so actually 2 of those units we have now had redeveloped since I've been on council, and they're brand new. And so everyone this year has brand new houses with brand new appliances and brand new everything, because that was our desire, to fight and change that.
So you are officially a councilman. How has those doors opened? Like, how has that been a game changer?
It was the same thing I was doing at the housing authority, representing for people of my community. Now I just get to do it on a bigger scale. But I think, the housing authority set me up for that opportunity, gave me training, gave me my voice, but it gave me a passion for people. And that's ultimately what we need, is to be able to be a voice. It gave me a passion, and more so, it gave me an opportunity to show people, especially young people, children who don't have a say in where they grow up. It is not their fault that they're growing up in the projects, growing up in a housing authority. They don't get to determine who their parents are or what their social economic status is. But it gave me an opportunity to create businesses, to create mentor programs, but to show them that it doesn't matter where you live at or where you start from. I ran my campaign from the projects
I
and
know
I
you did.
won.
I
And
was
I
about to tell
won.
you. So I was like, my next question was, and we got another person who has a question. My next question was, I know you ran your campaign and got everybody in your housing authority to vote for you.
Right.
And that's how you won the election.
I ran my campaign and more so than to get them to vote for me, I wanted to inspire them that they can be whatever they want to be, no matter where they start out at. And
I know
that
when
they
you
are not
won, they were
defined.
excited. They were like, now they like, I did that. I know him. I did that. You know, he used, you know, that's empowering. I mean, you have one of, I meet so many empowering stories, but I am always just like, when I need motivation, I tap in to you guys' stories because that just motivates me.
No, your
So how
story
many
was
times?
motivating.
Amen. Amen. How
Yeah,
many
your
times?
story was motivating, man. I think the most motivating part, I went to all the trainings, including the Can I Live training, the Million Moms Off Welfare training. I saw you. I have your book and Get Your Hands Out of My Pocket and all of those things, So I don't take any of that for granted. The most inspiring thing wasn't the fact. It was when I was mentoring the kids and I had a yard sign with my name on it in yards of people, and the kids said, "Oh my goodness, look at that. That's our neighbor. His name is in somebody's yard." And I went back and created those children their own yard signs. If they wanted to be nurses growing up, I created them yard signs that said future nurse. If they
Wow.
wanted to be police officers, I created yard signs that said future chief of police. I wanted them to dream big, whatever their dreams were. If they said, my son, he was 5 years old, he said he wanted to be a construction worker. I said, why? He said, because I want to build things. I said, okay, well, you want to be an architect. So I created him a yard sign that said future architect. And so how much more empowering is it to show these kids that they can be whatever it is that they want to be, and then put yard signs and inspire them to reach and achieve their goals. And so your story was empowering. Your story was inspiring. And I wanted to give that back to all the children in my community that I could.
Amen. Well, everybody know I'm crying, so I got tears.
Don't be a crybaby.
I'm a crybaby. Oh God, Labricia I think it's Labricia. She's like, that is a beautiful story. Misha, who's now running for president of her council, she's like, how did you get residents involved and engaged? What did you do?
I just did. I think that's what it was. I show with my actions. I was mentoring children every week. I would pull out my speakers and throw almost like a block party every weekend, just engaging the children. I did my own events. I knocked on all the doors. I took every training. So I really led by example, and I would never ask somebody to do something that I wouldn't do myself. I was doing security for the elderly. If they needed something, I was there to help them move. So I was really, by all means, in the community, engaged in the community. And so people knew me for what I was doing. So it wasn't a stretch to ask for their support or get them engaged and involved. And we still didn't get the full involvement of everybody that we wanted. I mean, still trying to get people to change their mindsets is a struggle. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So I guess the we're at the end of the show, but it was really about the case of the invisible black men. Why are more black men not in these housing authorities, one with these women, holding it down together like one love? Why is it that they have to be off the radar, off the lease? Yeah, I know they're not married, and housing won't put them on the lease unless you are married. But it's like, why can't we, there's so many issues, and it's compounded that, some of the men was like, yo, what's up? I mean, and he's a prime example that not only are there good men, because let me also say this. I think a lot of us, we got our little fairy tales mixed up, because here he has 13 kids. And let's say he walked up on one of y'all. Now, I'm gonna tell you, Lashani is a very nice looking man, and he can sing. So all he had to do is go out there on the microphone and sing a tune, and the women probably throwing their stuff, throwing their little panties at him or whatever, acting crazy, because he has that effect on people. And I'm not saying that that ever happened. That did not happen. But I'm crazy. And it's late. But what I'm saying is, if you met a man who told you he had 13 kids, would you automatically be like, we ain't doing that? But you're going to be saying no to a man that loved God, a man that loved his community, a man that loved his family, a provider, a businessman, a councilman. So we might want to put, like, just have no judgment, take down our I don't know if it's our wish list, like, he got other baby mamas. He got baby mamas, he told you. But would you, you know what I'm saying? So I just look at it like, if you, and let me, what's up, the shady, and what is it that you haven't found that right one?
You know what? I'm sorry that I guess I came on the back end of the show, because I literally was waiting for this time. Like, yo, I got to get on this podcast. And I must have had the time zone differences mixed up, and it wasn't on my calendar properly. And so I apologize for that, you all. I'm in Texas, so I'm on Central Standard Time.
So it's 7:13 in your world. So you were on
yes.
time in your world.
Right.
See,
right.
That's what I be talking about. Like, just those little nuances of Central Standard Time. I totally forgot about that, because I would have told you to make sure you on a 6.
Right. But I do want to, I guess I'm here. It's systemic, right? It's systemic why the Black men and the Black women are not in their household together. And, it gets deeper. It's so systemic, right? Because if we can separate the Black family, then we can have our way with the women, and we can enslave their men, and we can have our way with their children, and we can guide them the way that we want to guide them, because this system is run off of the economics of Black slavery. We talk about police brutality and why police brutality is a constant. And we talk about us being in a pandemic and unemployment at an all-time high, yet you can shoot an unarmed Jacob Blake in the back 7 times and spur tourism, because there's an economic driver to Black lives. Dead or alive, you are valuable. And in order for us to keep this system of slavery running, then we have to separate this powerful Black family. And so in order for Black women to keep housing, you have to put your fathers on child support. It's mandatory. For me to get into housing, they wanted me to have a form from the Attorney General showing that either the children of my mother, the mothers of my children, were on child support or something or another. And so when you have that kind of separation, so when you do that, the fathers of your children are like, yo, you know that I'm struggling. You know that I'm dealing with such and such. Why would you go do this? And so you further put a wedge in between an already broken relationship. Otherwise, you guys would be married or together or whatever. And so it's systemic the way they separate these families. And now that you're separate and mom has to go to work, well, who's raising your children? And so that's how we start attacking the children. And that's how we start cycling them into that school to prison pipeline, and the cycle continues. And so understand that the system is much bigger. It's created, and they don't call it projects for no reason. There's a system, there's a project that they're working toward, an end goal and an end game. And we just have to be mindful of who we're up against and what we're up against. And
I said that earlier. I said, if we could just really realize who the enemy is, who the adversary is, what is it, then we can probably start to even think more strategically on how to get out, how to outwit, outsmart, outrun, outdo. Like, what standards must we lift in ourselves to be able to succumb this adversary? Because it ultimately, I don't think you can write 1,000 resumes. You can't get 1,000 jobs. Ultimately, it's going to be a standard. And I think that that's something that's very prevalent across all stories today, is I chose I chose because of what I believe, or I chose. Harriet says she chose not to take her fathers to court. If we just make these decisions, you know, Tommy, you might have to choose to just leave. You know what I'm saying? Just so you can be free, because this God has not given us a spirit of fear, but we shouldn't be in bondage to this thing. He did not give us a blessing to be in bondage to the blessing. And for some people, you know, you got to find out what is that thing. Maybe I need to walk out. Maybe I need to relinquish my voucher. Me and God, if we got to do a room in a house somewhere, it's a safe room in a nice house that I'm proud to call my own. You know what I'm saying? We have to kind of just, because we can't just stay here. We can't stay here. And if you haven't noticed, public housing is changing all by itself. And if we don't come up with a plan, they don't care if you are homeless. They will just get more shelters. And who would want to bring their children up in a shelter? And so, you know, I hope that we can continue the conversation, because, you know, you heard it from a Black man himself. It's systemic, meaning it's not something that one person can fix. It's an individual choice. It's an individual agenda, a strategic plan that each family has to create. But I promise you, if we address the stuff in us, we can address, and we'll probably not drown, but starve and thirst out those systems that depend on us to stay salt in these situations. Because I promise, if everybody relinquish their voucher, if everybody say the hell with the food stands, I'll just grow my own fruit, you would just collapse the whole damn economy. If we stop calling the police and deal with our own stuff and manage emotional intelligence and get our heart in control and forgiveness and love, you'll put the cops out of business. And really, all of these systems manage the flesh. That's all it really does, is manage the different parts of the flesh that get out of control. And so I'm like, I don't want to give nobody that control. That's just too much control. I'm going to just mind my damn business. I'm going to repent when I got to repent. I'm going to apologize when I got to apologize. I'm going to shut my damn mouth when I got to shut up. I'm going to fight when I got to fight in the right way. I'm not getting arrested. I'm not doing jail. I'm not going to jail. And it doesn't mean that will stop anything, because these cops are straight crazy. I think they're traumatized, or they got some mental health issues, or they part of the damn Klan. Something. Right. I think they part of the Klan, if you ask me. But what if we just didn't call them? We just came out of the system altogether. And I just think that this time God is just unveiling, exposing, but we better be ready to make a decision. Yeah. We're gonna have to make a decision sooner than later. And I remember I said, Lord, for you I live, for you I die. If it means me and you in a tent in the park with my kids, that's where we're gonna be. And that was all my resolve. So I was never afraid to lose housing. I was never afraid to be evicted. I'll sleep in my car if I had to. We was just gonna do this hell, sleet, snow. It didn't matter. This wasn't stopping. And it just seemed like grace would show up right at that last moment, right when you ain't have nothing else left. It would just show up. And I think that, you know, learn what the real enemy is, at least, like LaShadian said. Any parting words, LaShadian? Any parting words for the ladies?
Yeah, I just want the Black women to know that we are here. We're not invisible. You're not invisible. I love you, Black woman. And there are lots of us that love you. And it is a struggle understanding that, you know, we have to go out and fight the system. We have to go out and fight white supremacy. We have to go out and fight other brothers that look like us. We have to sometimes come in and fight, you know, fight the women that don't know all of the fights that we have every day. And then we have to come in and fight because you don't know that we're fighting for you. You know, when I see the invisible Black man, it's like, you know, why you don't see me? Why you don't see me? And I'm out here fighting every day. And so just know that you are loved, you are cherished. And I don't know what else we got to do to be seen, but you know, I don't want to be invisible my whole life.
Amen. That's good. That's powerful. And it was a tagline that, you know, the ladies came up with last week because they felt like they were invisible, like you guys weren't there, but you're saying, how can you not see us?
Right.
That's deep. I told you we need a damn therapist on the show. Arnice, you
Well,
laugh.
y'all probably know where my therapy lie at.
Amen. I know that's right.
Amen.
I know that's right. Like, hey, I mean, seriously. So what I want to do is really quick shout out to the McKinney Housing Authority, Miss Rosalind Miller. Shout out to the Jacksonville Housing Authority, Miss Rhonda Lattimore, the Director of Resident Services. I know that Jacksonville recently got the Jobs Plus grant, and that was a lot of work. And so, Arnice, do you know what is the name of the community that will be privy to, what is it, $2 million plus?
Yes, it's called Southwind Villas.
Southwind Villas. Okay.
Yes.
So it's one of the largest communities you have.
Yes, ma'am. It's one of the largest, and the way that it's going to be set up, it's going to really be a fantastic venture. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm excited because it's going to give more residents the opportunity to work and not be concerned about how much money they're making, because they're going to have to, if their rent's going to be increased and things of that nature. And by being a 4-year program, it's really going to give a variety of families the opportunity to position themselves in a positive manner.
And sometimes when I don't think people understand what that means. So Jobs Plus programs, it's called Earned Income Disallowance. It's a thing that HUD will allow your rent to not be counted for. Sometimes in the regular world, the first year 100% is not counted. The second year only 50% is counted, and then the third year all your rent is counted and all your income is counted. And with this new Jobs Plus, I believe every person in that community who is enrolled and actively pursuing upward mobility will have all of their rent disallowed for 4 years.
Yes.
That means shame on those people that will take their rent and go splurge it. I'm taking my rent and I'm saving it.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm opening up some type of savings account. I'm seeing if I can get a match savings account. I'm working on credit. I'm doing all of those things. Let me mute. Who is that? Okay. So, but shout out. I'm looking forward to working. We've done work in the past with McKinney for sure. Rosalind's a big advocate of ours, and we're a big advocate of hers. I'm glad that Lashanian is no longer there, but he has a story. So I hope that we'll be able to take parts of this clip, The Invisible Black Man. And I actually want to take that clip and say, especially the powerful part where you said, how can you not see us? We out here fighting every day. That is so powerful. I don't know what next show should be about. What do you think we should be, like, where do we go from here? We talked about this and you pretty much nailed it, Lashani. And you said, how can you not see me? I don't want to be invisible forever, but how can you not see me out here fighting every day? Hell, you see me when I get shot by the White House, but how you don't see me every day? That is so powerful. But where do we go from here? Because this is one of those series that, you know, I don't want to pre-plan something like I have all of this stuff figured out in my head. I really want to be, you know, flexible, open.
Oh, I think there, and I don't know, you know, I don't know how you transition that, but when there needs to be more conversation. Obviously, you know, you have your women and bonding and women group, and you have your men's and bonding, and we do things. but we need to figure out and get back to bonding together. We need to get back to that enclave. We need to get back to the power of the Black man and the Black woman working together. It's so much separatism. It's so much, independence. And I think that, half of that, again, is a system set up to separate us. I remember there was a year of just separating women. It was the Lil Boosie, INDEPEND. Then you had Neo, Miss Independent. And women became so overly independent that even when we were there, they didn't want us to be there. Open a door for a woman. I could open my own door. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, I know you could open the door. I'm not saying, baby, that you're incapable of opening the door. I'm just trying to be a man. Let me be me. You know what I mean? And so I think we need to figure out, how do we begin to start working together again? Not to take away from your power, not to take away from my power, but we are more powerful together. And how do we start having those conversations about working together? There's nothing wrong with women's conferences. There's nothing wrong with men conferences. But when can we start having family conferences? When can we start working together and unifying each other?
That's good.
Amen.
Yeah, I would like that. I got to find a nice little marketing tagline. I got to find out how to do that. And somebody said, Labrisha said, she was like, we see you, Black man. She's like, this webinar was the most authentic webinar I have ever been on. So that is so cool.
Peace and power. Tell her I am because you are. I am nothing alone. All power to the people.
Amen. Lashani is a good Black man. Shout out to all the Black men out there. We love you. Obviously, we love you. We be having all these babies by y'all. We love y'all, and we say peace and blessings. We are definitely at our time tonight, but would join us next Sunday. Well, I'm already on Sunday. Next Tuesday at 7:00. Be sure to like us on Facebook, like us on Instagram at Cannot Live Podcast, and share this with your friends. And even if you have to speed it up to the part where Lashadian went in, since it was about the invisible Black man, and he's like, I don't want to be invisible. We don't know what next show is going to be like, but if it can only just continue the conversation like today, that would be great. So I thank you guys for joining us today. Today was wonderful. I don't know about you, but I feel a little lighter in terms of, it was heavy yet last week. This week started out heavy too, but Lashady and you and Harry and all of you guys' stories, our niece, you guys have come, and I think we overcome through the power of what's working, because we always hear what's not working. Maybe we should just talk about more what is working here on the HUD Housewives of America. It's not all bad. It's not all bad. So you guys, I thank you. I love you guys. Lashanian will be in contact. Maybe join us next week if I could figure out what we're doing. If you guys have any ideas, a show topic to send us, you can email podcast@canilive.org. Tell Rhonda, tell Rosalind I said hello. And you guys have a good night.
Good night.
Have a good night. Thanks
Good
for having me.
night.
Good
Good night.
night.
Yes, good night. Good show, you guys.
Good night.
Good night.